Dinner had already gone cold by the time my mother decided to speak. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't look upset. In fact, she looked relieved, like someone finally checking off the last item on a long list. She wiped her mouth with her napkin, folded it carefully, and placed it beside her plate. That small, precise movement made my stomach tighten. In our house, that gesture meant something was ending. "Emily," she said, calm and clipped, "you need to start looking for a place of your own." I blinked, waiting for the rest of the sentence. It never came. My father stared straight down at his plate, his fork hovering uselessly in midair. Across from me, my sister leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes bright with interest. She already knew. I could tell by the way she was watching me. Not with concern, but curiosity, like she was waiting to see how I'd react. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "The house is being sold," my mother continued. "We're relocating. Everything's finalized." I felt the room tilt. "When?" "Soon," she said. "Very soon. And me." She met my eyes without hesitation. "You won't be coming with us." The words landed quietly but carried weight, like a door closing somewhere deep in my chest. I looked to my father. He didn't look back. Not even when I said his name. His silence felt practiced, like something he'd rehearsed in advance. Hannah's mouth twitched, the hint of a smile slipping through before she masked it. "You have about a month," my mother added. "That should be enough time. A month. To find a place. To pack up my life. To disappear." No one asked if I was okay. No one asked if I could afford it. The decision had already been made. Dinner was just the delivery system. I nodded once, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. Crying would have given them satisfaction. Arguing would have changed nothing. I'd learned that lesson years ago. The conversation moved on. New cities. Better weather. Fresh starts. I sat there, listening to plans being made for a future I'd been quietly excluded from. That night, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked rhythmically above me. I'd lived in this house my entire life. I'd paid rent, bought groceries, covered bills when things got tight. Somehow, I was still expendable. By morning, the house buzzed with movement. Suitcases rolled across the floor. Closets were emptied. Family photos disappeared from the walls, leaving behind lighter rectangles where memories used to be. No one knocked on my door. No one said goodbye properly. When the front door finally closed behind them, the silence felt enormous. I didn't cry. I walked through the house instead. Slowly. Room by room. Each space felt unfamiliar without their presence, like a stage after the actors had left. The kitchen smelled faintly of last night's dinner. The living room echoed. My parents' bedroom was stripped bare. I sat on the floor and waited for fear to arrive. It didn't. What came instead was a strange, steady clarity. 6 months later, my phone buzzed while I was in the middle of a work call. "Mom, why are you still in the house?" I muted my microphone and stared at the message. Then I laughed. Quietly, under my breath. She had no idea. Not even a hint. Before I explain that moment, you need to understand how I ended up being the kind of daughter a family thinks it can discard without consequences. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 26. I work remotely in software development. I've always been the invisible one, the easy one. The child who didn't demand attention or reassurance. The one who learned early that staying quiet made things smoother for everyone else. From the outside, my family looked normal. Comfortable suburban home. 2 parents. 2 daughters. Neighbors waved. Holidays looked cheerful in photos. But inside that house, love wasn't something you received freely. It was something you earned. And even then, it could be revoked. My mother controlled everything. Not loudly, not violently, just firmly. She decided what mattered, who mattered, and when. Praise was rare. Approval even rarer. Disappointment, on the other hand, lingered in the air like humidity. My father wasn't cruel. He just wasn't there when it counted. Conflict made him shrink. Silence was his coping mechanism. If my mother decided something, he went along with it, convincing himself it was for the best. Then there was Hannah. My younger sister had always been different. Louder. More demanding. She pushed, and the world seemed to move for her. When she wanted something, it appeared. When she failed, excuses were made. When she succeeded, it was celebrated loudly. I learned to stay small beside her. By 16, I had a job. Not because I needed money, but because I hated asking for anything. With my first paycheck, I bought myself a battered old laptop. It overheated constantly and sounded like it was gasping for air, but it was mine. At night, after everyone went to bed, I taught myself to code. I didn't tell anyone. There was no point. I liked the quiet logic of it. Inputs and outputs, cause and effect. No emotional negotiations. No favoritism. Years passed. I went to college. Got a degree. Found work. Paid my share at home. Stayed out of the way. My parents liked to tell people I was figuring things out, which was code for not impressive enough to brag about. And maybe that's why they never saw me coming. 2 months before that dinner, I'd stumbled across a real estate listing while scrolling late one night. The address looked familiar. Too familiar. It was my house. Photographed, staged, and priced like I didn't exist. That's when everything clicked. They hadn't decided suddenly. This wasn't a spontaneous move. They'd been planning it for months. Maybe longer. That dinner wasn't a discussion. It was a notice. I didn't confront them. I didn't panic. I made a call instead. Back in the present, sitting in my home office 6 months after they'd left, I watched my phone light up again. Mom, answer me. I let the call go to voicemail. They thought time would push me out. That pressure would force me to scramble. That I'd end up begging, apologizing, shrinking myself to fit into whatever scraps they offered. They underestimated me. And they had no idea that the house they thought they'd sold was never truly out of my hands. The weeks after they left were not dramatic. There was no collapse. No frantic scrambling. No tearful nights on the kitchen floor. Instead, something unexpected happened. My life slowed down. Not in a way that felt empty, but in a way that felt intentional, like I was finally moving at my own pace instead of reacting to someone else's decisions. The house itself seemed to exhale. At first, I barely changed anything. I lived among the leftover spaces, the places where furniture used to be, the pale outlines on the walls where frames had once hung. But gradually, choice by choice, the house began to shift. Not into something flashy or impressive, just into something honest. I bought a couch that was soft enough to fall asleep on without apologizing to anyone. I chose lamps that gave off warm light instead of harsh brightness. I hung artwork I liked, not pieces chosen to impress visitors. The echo in the living room faded. Footsteps sounded grounded instead of hollow. The house stopped feeling borrowed. My mornings changed too. I woke up without bracing myself. Coffee brewed when I wanted it, not when it fit someone else's schedule. I worked from the dining table some days, sunlight stretching across the floor, realizing how strange it was to exist in the same space without tension humming beneath everything. I slept deeply for the first time in years. What surprised me most wasn't how peaceful the house felt, it was how little I missed them. Weeks passed. Then months. No one called to check if I'd moved out. No one asked if I was managing. No concern, no follow-up, no curiosity. It was as if, in their minds, I'd already been erased the moment the door closed behind them. That realization hurt more than their words ever had. Then one afternoon, while I was reviewing code at my desk, my phone vibrated. I glanced down. Mom. I didn't feel a spike of anxiety. No rush of dread. Just a quiet awareness. I let it buzz once more before picking it up. Her message was short. Why are you still in the house? No greeting. No concern. Just confusion, tinged with annoyance, like I'd misplaced something that belonged to her. I stared at the screen for a moment before smiling to myself. Not smug. Not cruel. Just settled. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another message came through. Then a missed call. I muted the notifications and finished my workday without distraction. The world didn't collapse because I didn't answer. Nothing bad happened because I didn't explain myself. That Saturday morning, I heard a familiar sound in the driveway. I didn't rush to the window. I didn't feel panic. I already knew. The doorbell rang. Once. Then again. I took my time. Not to be petty, but because I finally could. When I opened the door, they stood there like muscle memory. My parents side by side. Hannah slightly behind them, peering past their shoulders. My mother's expression faltered the moment she saw inside. The living room looked complete. Lived in. Intentional. Not staged. Not temporary. Hannah's eyes swept the space quickly, her confidence dimming. What happened here? She asked. My mother stepped inside without waiting to be invited, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Emily, we need to talk. I closed the door behind them. We can, I said. Sit down. They did, slowly, cautiously, like they were entering unfamiliar territory. My mother folded her hands together. This house was sold, she said. You were supposed to leave. I know, I replied calmly. So why are you still here? She demanded. Because it's mine. Silence filled the room. Hannah laughed once, sharply. That's not funny. I'm not joking. My mother's jaw tightened. You don't have the means for something like this. I tilted my head slightly. You never asked. She stood abruptly. Explain yourself. So I did, but not the way she expected. I didn't list numbers. I didn't justify my choices. I didn't reveal timelines. I simply told the truth, that I'd been working quietly for years, that I'd seen the listing before they told me, that I made a legal decision, that the house had been purchased, fairly and fully. My father rubbed his face with both hands. Why wouldn't you tell us? I met his eyes. Because you didn't include me when it mattered. My mother's voice softened instantly, recalibrating. We've had unexpected expenses, she said carefully. The move hasn't been easy. We assumed, well, we thought you'd understand. Understand what? I asked. That family helps family, Hannah said quickly. I nodded once. That works both ways. My mother stepped closer. We raised you. And I paid rent, I replied. I contributed. I stayed quiet. I made myself small. You still decided I was disposable. That's not how it was, my father murmured. It's exactly how it was, I said evenly. The room felt heavy, like a truth finally spoken aloud. My mother sighed. This doesn't have to be a conflict. We could come to an arrangement. There is no arrangement, I said gently. She stared at me. You're choosing a house over your family? I shook my head. I'm choosing myself. I walked to the door and opened it. You should go. They hesitated, clearly expecting resistance, bargaining, tears. None came. This isn't finished, my mother said quietly. It is for me. They left without another word. I locked the door behind them and leaned against it, breathing deeply. Not from relief, but from release. Justice didn't feel loud. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt clean. They didn't stop trying immediately. Messages followed. Apologies tangled with explanations. My father left voicemails that began with regret and ended with justification. Hannah sent long texts about misunderstanding and forgiveness. I read none of them past the first line. An aunt visited one afternoon with coffee and kind intentions. She talked about family bonds and letting go of resentment. I told her the truth. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just finished shrinking. Life settled into something steady after that. I celebrated my birthday surrounded by friends who didn't measure my worth. The house filled with laughter that didn't come with conditions. Some nights, I sat alone in the living room, lights dim, thinking about how close I'd come to believing I deserved less. I didn't. Walking away wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. Family isn't defined by shared blood or last names. It's defined by who stands beside you when you don't have anything to offer but yourself. The moment I stopped begging to belong was the moment my life finally became my own. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that self-worth is not determined by how others treat us, even if they're family. Sometimes the people closest to us fail to see our value, and that doesn't make us less deserving of respect, love, or space to grow. It teaches the importance of setting boundaries, quietly building your independence, and claiming what is rightfully yours without apology. Life is not about shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. It's about standing tall, trusting your abilities, and protecting your peace. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted, know that it's never too late to take control of your life, honor your efforts, and create the space where you truly belong.